Now live, and I'm going to wait for some of you to come on. For those of you who are re-listening to this after the class, whether in replay or on the website. Hey, I see you. Welcome. So happy to see you. So for those of you who are re-listening, I just want to say welcome. And for those of you who are here now, welcome to you. This is a great topic. It's an important topic for all of us. It's a topic that we somehow think is not an issue when we reach adulthood. Somehow we think that, number one, we should have figured this out. And number two, there's this assumption that like friendships are, I don't know. I've heard a lot of people judging themselves. Like, I should have figured this out already. And why is friendships a big deal? Like, I have my family now, but that's not how it works. In fact, I lost my train of thought because I was going to say that before we launch into the topic, I really just want to say that for those of you who are here and brave enough to show up here, my prayer is that you really find connection, because really that is what that's life's most richest reward. It's interesting because there's this TED talk of someone who did a life project. They followed people from very young age until they were very old. And I haven't listened to it in a while. I should, because it's good. And I recommend you listen to it too. Basically, the people who led rewarding, healthy, and long lives all had relationships that gave them comfort and joy and connection. It's not a small matter. It's one of the most important matters. Whatever else we're pursuing, whether we're trying to just survive, whether we're trying to, get our household, our business, our day-to-day, our marriage, whatever we're trying to do to make happen in this world, ultimately, really what we want is a quality life in which we feel so good. And relationship is the thing that gives that to us. And it's also one of the most often neglected areas. And here's why. So we tell ourselves it's not important, that somehow we should have figured this out. And it's one of the biggest myths, because first of all, okay, so there are a few points here, so that's why I'm trying to pull them apart. One of them is, if you're married, your spouse will be your friend, your best friend. Number one, that is often not true. For many people, that doesn't really work. A marriage is not a friendship, it's a partnership. And some people think, well, if there's no friendship in my partnership, then I should dissolve the partnership. But that's not a reason to dissolve the partnership. A marriage is not a friendship. When you have friendship, that is beautiful and wonderful. And it's something we're all working towards. It's something we all want. And it's great, right? But it doesn't always work that way. And that doesn't mean that the marriage is flawed. So, and yet, right, even if it does work that way, even if you do have a best friend in your spouse, keeping yourself to a best friend, right? I know that growing up, there was this concept of best friend and maybe more casual friendships, but then, little kids, in my class growing up, we all tried to have our one best friend. That usually ends up being a codependent relationship. So when we have a best friend relationship with our spouse, or when we get married expecting that my fulfillment and friendship will come from one person who is also my spouse, who is also the person who shares my living quarters, who shares my expenses, who shares my meals, and this one person will also fulfill all of my connection needs, that's a lot of responsibility we're putting on the other person. That's a lot of responsibility we're putting on us to feel fulfilled from one source. And the fact is that we ourselves are so multidimensional. We have so much inside of us that to be fulfilled from one person is narrowing ourselves down and squeezing ourselves down to fit into one relationship. That's not how we get our fulfillment. We are much bigger than that. We're much more expansive than that. So while we want friendship with our spouse, and hopefully we can get that, we don't want that to be our only source. Wait, there's more on this. There's more on this. Okay, so yeah, the other piece about this is that the other piece about this is codependence. Codependency is not a bad thing, and it's not a wrong thing. It's a belief that we are not lovable, and that because we're not lovable, we will do whatever it takes to make the other person love us, to make us feel loved, so that we don't have to live with this, I'm not lovable, because that is a very painful feeling that we have. Now, the painful feeling that we have that we're not lovable came from the fact that we are pure love, and we were born as pure love. When we came down on this earth, we were souls, we were godly, we were love, and we were squeezed into this body, squeezed into this life, squeezed into this family, and our family did not have the capacity to embrace all of what we are. So we didn't feel love, and we took away a message of, I'm not loved, I'm not lovable. To rectify that situation, we tend to turn to a person who we parentify, we make them into our parent or substitute parent, and we say, can you please love me? So they're like, well, maybe, there's usually something going there. Like there's some piece of this relationship that might work, whether it's a marriage, so you already have this contract. So like clearly the person is right there. So that's going to be your person. Or if there was something nice, right? You had a good interaction. You did have a moment where you had a nice moment together. You connected. So that person now becomes your person who's going to make you feel lovable, but nobody can do that for you. So instead of facing that pain again, what we do is we start serving that person, using that person, controlling that person. It may not feel like control, but if we get jealous, we want to make sure that that person is not connecting with other people more than they're connecting to us. If we find ourselves acting in a way that will get their approval, because if I dress a certain way, act a certain way, don't say certain things that won't go over well with them, then they will like me more and be there more. So I'm going to stell sich zieh, as we say in Yiddish. I'm going to, what's the English word for it? Whatever it is, right? I'm going to make myself so that I am lovable by this person. Now what you're doing is, instead of actually being lovable now and knowing that you are essentially in your essence lovable, you're actually cutting away from yourself. You're squeezing yourself. You're fading yourself out. You're sending a message to yourself that who you really are is not lovable. You are affirming the message that you're so afraid of. That's codependency. Another way we can be codependent is to choose someone who needs us. If they need us, whether they are sick, addicted, desperate, whatever, then they need us so badly that inevitably we are so needed that now we know that we're worth something, that we are lovable. So, codependency is a big issue. And I'm thinking, because I started talking about codependency in terms of marriage, right? If you are in a marriage and you want the marriage to be that fulfillment, the fulfillment of all of the friendship and connection that you need, you've put yourself into a situation where you always have to be available, have to do the things that your spouse wants you to do, whether it works for you or not, whatever. You know what codependency looks like in your relationship. So that's in terms of a marriage. But even in friendship, let's say you decided to widen your circle and you say, that you would like to have friendship, right? You never want to be in a friendship with someone where your sense of connection, wellness, fulfillment comes from that one friendship. because nobody can fulfill you in that way. You're too big for that. And if you're going to be fulfilled just there, inevitably you will become smaller. So you'll change your schedule when you're not ready to change your schedule. You'll do activities that don't feel like they resonate, right? You'll party if you want to have something more relaxed and meaningful. You'll do boring, whatever it is, right? You'll talk on the phone for too long. I mean, these are just examples. You'll also find yourself feeling needy, right? Like, I made myself available. I made myself vulnerable. I let you know that I want this friendship. And now I gave my entire ball to in your court. Now I'm waiting. I'm like, I gave the ball to you and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. So the other person might be your friend, but they might also be, whether a mother of children, an employee, someone who's under the weather, someone who's hormonal right now, whatever, right? They have a million things to do besides for this relationship. And you are vulnerable now because your essence, your value, your feeling of being lovable is in someone else's hands. That's a very dangerous place to be in. So how do we navigate friendships? The first thing that we want to make sure is and this is cliche because we talk about this all the time in this course. That's why this course is Heal Your Life, because you go home to yourself. That's where the real healing is. So you start off with loving yourself, right? You came into this world as a perfect being. Not only perfect, you are so much larger than your body. You're so much more than the life experience that you've lived until now. The fact is that if you're listening to this class, you're somewhere between 20 and like 55, right? You still have decades of magic to unfold, of you to become more and more and more of yourself. And so you're so much more than you even know, than it's even possible for you to know. You are as limited as your own body and your own lifespan, right? The time that you have. Your soul is not limited. Your soul will live on after today, right? You will live into tomorrow and into the day after, and you will also live into the afterlife. Your soul is so much larger than you can even imagine. So being connected to that knowledge of self, that value of self, and knowing that the world, the physical world, your parents, your siblings, even your friends, they are not big enough to mirror back to you the full extent of your magic. Your magic is so large. How do you get in touch with your magic? Quiet time, affirming it to yourself. Say it to yourself in a way that you can hear it. I am magic. Or maybe magic is a word that doesn't resonate with you as much as I'm beautiful, I'm lovable, I'm alive, I'm precious. Take that in, right? Because that's the starting point. It's who you are. You're the first person in every relationship you'll be in. And ultimately, the gift of relationship, that gift that keeps you going, that gift that keeps you healthy and alive way into your 90s, the gift of relationship is really an affirmation and a celebration of yourself, right? You're connecting with other people who are as well alive and celebrating life. So you're starting from a place of celebrating yourself. That's where we start. Celebrate yourself. So whether it's just remembering how big you are, telling it to yourself, or treating yourself without anyone else, treating yourself the way you as a soul, as a piece of magic is supposed to be treated, right? Giving yourself the things you need, giving yourself the things you desire, giving yourself time, giving space to your feelings, the feelings that are difficult, the feelings that are exciting, accepting yourself, accepting your mistakes. All of these are the baseline. It's becoming friends with yourself. You are your best friend. If there is a moment when you want to connect with a friend and you want to say to this friend, let's do this thing, is there any way you can do it for yourself, even if not that specific thing? What are you looking for? What fulfillment are you looking for? How can you give it to yourself? Again, This is not like you don't want to become your friend and then leave everyone out of the picture. We're not getting to a place where we're not connecting to people. We are, but we're connecting from a better place. We're connecting from a place where we are so connected with ourselves. And I just want to pause here. I hope I won't lose my train of thought, but I want to pause here to say that the question that came in was, I've done all this work, right? I've done the course, I've done the work, and I keep feeling this. And two people had the same question, and I thought I was going to lose my train of thought. Here's the thing. We expect that once we've gotten that connection with ourselves, that it's going to become natural, that from here on out, things should be easy, right? If I have felt a level of self-love, things should be easier now. So two things. First of all, we have to keep connecting with ourselves. We are the friendship that we have to maintain, right? All these friendships that we want should be maintained, and that people should keep, the friendship should keep on going. We have to keep this friendship with ourselves going. It's not enough that we felt it and that we know in our mind that we felt it at one point. It's an experience. So you cannot have an experience beyond the time that you had that experience. You have to keep on giving it to yourself again and again and again. You are your best friend. You gotta connect with yourself daily, hourly. You're there. Do you know that you're there? Like, can you notice that you're there? So that's one thing. The other thing is that our friendships grow as we grow. So we started out, let's say, from a place where our self-love was at a very low level, perhaps. Knowing, right, like thinking about myself, I grew up in the past, as a child, I had one class growing up from 1st to 12th grade. So I knew these people and I had like my position that I held on to. And that was fine. But as I started growing, that doesn't work anymore. So even though you may think like, I should have learned friendship in kindergarten, it's something that we keep relearning. And even if you felt that you've gotten a handle on friendship this year, your capacity for the relationships you want, the type of people you want, the tribe you attract keeps on growing. And so you find yourself saying, wait, how do I do this? I thought it kind of worked itself out. I kind of managed to have friends at some point. How do I do this? Right? And you start from scratch. So we may not have learned friendship skills. That's another thing, that even though maybe you did have friends, maybe you didn't even have friends growing up, right? We may not have learned friendship skills, but these friendship skills, when we do learn them, even if we learn them now, in a year from now, you may have to bring these same tools to a different situation because you will have grown and your capacity will have grown. So you will need something more powerful. I don't know what's happening today. I have so much to say. I find my pool shrinking. So here's the thing. This is the other piece also, that we feel as we grow that there are less people that we can relate to. I think I'm doing it because they don't serve me anymore. Yes. Okay. So as we're growing, the people that we used to complain to and cry to, the people that we used to have dark humor with, they might not work anymore. The people who were there just because they needed us, we stopped needing people to need us. The people, we don't have what worked in those relationships, and therefore these relationships might start falling away. And we find ourselves in a space where we're open for a relationship, but we're not finding it yet. I'm just going to read the other comment that came in, but it doesn't feel like I'm growing. It feels like I'm back where I started. I hear that. it's possible, right? It's possible, but it's also not possible. The work that you've done never leaves you, but it's like a spiral. You're coming back to a spot that feels familiar. You're coming back to a pain that feels familiar. Only now you're not using the old tools. So you're saying, what do I do now? Like, I'm again in this lonely place. I'm again in this place where I don't have people. I'm again in this place where I'm so needy. Well, yes, because you've let go of all the old people who didn't serve you, and now you have even less people than where you started from. So what do you do now? It's the same place that you were in originally, and yet you are not the same person. You are a person with tools. So what are those tools? Number one, loving yourself. Number two, we need to expand our circle. And how do we do this? We find them where we are. Meaning, all of you who are here are people who are growing, who are learning. Where are you learning? How are you learning? Where can you meet other people who are learning as well? I mean, I know that some of you, right? Like a lot of you I know that this course is online, so you don't get to meet each other as much. But we do have in-person groups, and we do have, online, you do know each other from being on the same chat, right? So that's just one place. Whatever class you go to, whatever workshop you go to, whatever, you meet people. That's an opportunity to expand your pool, to expand your circle. You will meet people. And you know what else? The old people who you had but you disconnected from, they may have done some growing also. They may, outside of your vision, because you were not focused on them and you needed to disconnect from them, there may be something for you. I've had friendships that I let go of, or that kind of fizzled out, and then we found each other's at a different time and opportunity when we had both, we met up again. But we don't have to be dependent on specific people. It's not about the people we grew up with. It is about the fact that there are hundreds and thousands and millions, quite literally millions of people who are on the path. And we start walking down our path. We start going into our life. And as children, we had some people who were near us, and they were our friends. And then we keep walking and we outwalked them, or we took a fork in the road and we're not there where we were. So we've lost a whole bunch of people, but that fork in the road is not empty. There are people there. So how do we find them, right? Look around you. Who is doing the same things as you? Who is if you're on Instagram, you see people putting out content that resonates with you and some that doesn't. Stop, unfollow people who don't resonate with you. The people who do, who is their community? What kind of conversations are happening there, right? That's online, but I know that online relationships don't fulfill a real connection need. They are just there as a place for you to look around and see, is there someone to whom I can reach out and I can have a real in-person relationship with? So that's just you looking around, right? Go to events, go to things that are aligned with where you're going and who you are. You'll find them. I mean, looking through the weekly circular that comes into my door, there are hundreds of events happening every week, but most of them we don't even notice. We only notice the ones that talk to the things that we're working on, to the things that we're interested in. Those are the places you want to go because that's where you'll find people for you. So that's finding people. But both of the people who actually asked this question asked it in a way where they said, I have found people, right, in the country, in my neighborhood, whatever. I have people. And when I wanted to be a friend with them, I realized how needy, how desperate, how scared I am. So I'm not so worried about you finding people because the right people will show up for you. And the more adventurous you're willing to be to go and find them, there are so many people just like you who are wonderful, amazing people to connect with. And therefore, the scarcity mindset of I have to hold on to a friend who doesn't serve me doesn't really make sense, because when you think about how many people there are who are on your path, you can let go of the people who you're not resonating with, and you can it's not like you need to finish with them. You just grow on. You grow on. And the thing about not burning your bridges is that you can always go back, and if they're ready, if you're ready, you can reconnect at the right time. Because as people, we're either growing or going backwards, but most people are growing. Most life kind of pushes us forward. So your friends are being pushed forward just as much as you are. So you'll find them again. But for now, right, there are people just where you are. So how do we connect? How do we connect in a way that feels safe and doesn't feel like we're bearing our souls and feeling awful doing this? This is supposed to be a fun experience. Like, connection is supposed to feel good. Connection is not supposed to feel painful. And for many of us, connection is painful. It started, again, with us coming into this world as connected beings. We're designed to be connected, right? That's why a mother nurses her baby. And even if we're bottle feeding, it doesn't matter. The point is, right, a baby comes in connected. A baby, as blind as a baby is born, a baby looks towards their parents. A baby smells their parents. We're born connected. And not only on a physical level, but also spiritually. Our souls are bigger than our body. Our body is inside of our soul, not the opposite. It's not that the soul is inside our body. Our body is a physical expression of a part of our soul. We are so big and we are so expanded. We are connected. We come into a family that we chose. We come into this world to connect. So we're born as connected beings, and we didn't get that. Most of the time, most human beings do not have the capacity to give that level of connection that the soul wants to you. I'm just going to read the comment that came in. I really don't like the idea of changing friendships. I like the comfort. Sorry for being annoying. You're not annoying, and I hear that, right? So you can keep the old friendships, but what we're saying when we're keeping old friendships is good. There's nothing like an old friend, right? It's wonderful. It's a blessing. That's what you want. But when you have an old friendship and it isn't serving you and it isn't serving all of your needs, what you're saying is, I'm going to try to control this so it stays the way I need it to stay because I need the love and friendship. Of course you need the love and friendship. We all need love, connection, and friendship. We all need it. It's a fact. But they may not be able to give it to you. And so what are you going to do? They may be able to give you a small amount, right? But what are you going to do? How small are you going to make yourself to fit into this relationship? How controlling are you going to be? How jealous are you going to be? How much of your time are you going to mess up to be on their schedule? Like, how hard are you going to work to get the connection and love that you need from a specific source? We don't want to be dependent on one specific source. That's codependence. That I think that in order to have what I need, I am dependent on this person. You're not. You are complete. Your soul is complete. And all of these, and now, based on the needs that you feel, you can nash and take from all different places, and you can get from everyone. There's nothing wrong with connecting on a very deep level to people, but not in a way where you depend on them specifically, because you don't want that. You don't want codependence. It ends up being really painful. So you can keep your old friendships. You don't have to say goodbye at all. You can keep your old friendships, and you're not dependent on them. You have enough friendships to fortify you and to keep you going while they're busy doing what they need to do, so that when they are available and you are available at the same time for the same thing in the same way, you meet up in the most beautiful way. So, back to coming into this world. Why did we get into this? Your parents, right? Your parents are there. You want to connect. It's natural for you to connect. You're not getting that connection. Where were we going though with this? I can't remember. I think I only have codependent friendships, so maybe that's the way I know. Yes. Okay. So, I think we were talking about, learning the tools for friendship. So we get into our families and we're like, okay, let's connect, right? And every time something hurts, we let everyone know, right? Like we're connecting, we're communicating. And every time something doesn't hurt and we're happy, we fall asleep, we're in a blissful state, and then we smile and very soon we start making sounds and making eye contact and really wanting to connect. That's what we came in to do. But we're not getting that. And a lot of times the way we're wired and the way this comes across to us is who I am can't connect, right? Because we came in just being and connecting. Didn't work because our parents were busy. They were unavailable. They had a million things on their head. They were human beings, whatever. Now, in order to survive, because I need connection for survival. In order to survive, I'm going to become something so that the other person will like me. So some of us became indispensable to our parents, helpful, and trying to save them and whatever. I mean, I cleaned up our house. I tried to kind of impress my mother and have her need all the services I was giving her, right? That's one way. Some of us try to be incredibly funny so that we're noticed. Some of us try the opposite. We try to be extremely loud and we fight and we're rebellious so that people should notice us. Just notice that I'm here. I'm willing to be miserable. I'm willing to be disconnected, and I'm willing to fight the people I love the most so that they could finally notice me and connect to me. So those were the things that we learned about connection. Now, taking it outside of the family, we came into a class usually or the neighborhood, and we also started noticing that in order to connect, often we needed to be something. We needed to be the loudest, the fastest, the best at sports, the kindest. I remember going to camp. It was one year that I went to camp and I was selfless. I guess this was my way of connecting, and I just, whatever someone wanted, I gave them. I was just so giving because that was my way of connecting. And I remember that the last week of camp, I went for 8 weeks. The 8th week of camp, somebody was like, hey, you have cookies. Can I have your cookies? I got into such a rage. I was like, get away from me. I had been giving and giving and giving and giving as a way of connecting. Ultimately, it doesn't work and we feel depleted, right? But that's how we learn to connect, either by giving too much or by being the funniest one or the most fun or the most available at the expense of ourselves. So we get even older and we get into a marriage. And in the marriage, a lot of us have had messages as well, right? In order to get a shidduch, the whole shidduch crisis and the whole shidduch thing is you need to be something specific in order to get married, in order to catch a good shidduch. So you'll be a very specific kind of girl, you'll behave in a very specific kind of way, you'll look a very specific kind of way, you'll get dressed, you will do whatever it takes so that you find love. And so once you get into that relationship, you might think that in order to maintain it, you have to be something very specific. You have to be that housewife. You have to be, you have to be what you think you have to be. So coming into even, as you get older and you've been married and you kind of, figured that piece out, and now you're like, I want connection. So you can keep on doing this. You can keep on being I want connection, so I'm going to do what it takes. I'm going to do whatever I need to do so that people will like me and I will find connection. Or you can say, Shefala, that was a really long ride. You've come a long way just trying to survive. We're going back home to where it all started. Where it all started was that you came in as a connected person. That's where it started. It didn't start with you needing and trying to be this for your parents and that for your friends and this for your spouse. It started with you being a connected person. That's where this whole story started. So if you go back there and you take that in, you take in that you are a connector, you automatically and naturally connect to people. That's who you were born to be. Then You don't have to be anything else for anyone else to be a friend. Who you are is good enough. What you do is good enough. When you are available is good enough. What you want to do is good enough. It may not work for them, but it doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It doesn't mean that you're not connected if they can't connect to it. You're starting out from a place where you know that you want to connect, and you honor that because connection is an inherent part of you. And all the messages that you got that were the opposite of this. For example, well, you're not going to get married, you're not going to get connected, you're not going to get love if you're not X, Y, and Z. That was a lie. Of course, your naturalness is to connect. So when you feel that feeling of I want friendship, that's your first indication that you're on the right track. You've connected to your soul again. Your soul knows that it wants connection, and you're feeling it, and you're hearing the call, and you're showing up for it. So welcome. And now, how do you actually do it? What are the tools? The tools are you meet people and you let them know you're available. How do you do this? You offer them, well, I would love to, whatever it is that you would love to do with them. I would love to have a conversation. I'd love to have coffee. Come over at any time if that's appropriate, whatever it is, right? You let the people know that you are available. And then, because you haven't given your whole ball into their court, you've just given them a little note to say, hey, I like what I'm seeing. I'm open for this connection. So I'm just letting you know. That's it. You walk away. If they want to, they know where to find you. You're not looking for people who are desperate for friendship, because you don't want a codependent relationship in which they need you so much that they will therefore fill you up in a way where you cannot see yourself again. No. You're seeing people, you're letting them know. If they want to pick it up, they can, and if not, they won't. So if you're going to be using that method, then you better have a lot of people in your circle, because not everyone's going to pick up where you left them off, right? So you can let people know that you're available. And then you step back, and you step back into yourself, and you nurture yourself, and you do the activities that you want. You let someone know, I'm going out tonight. Would you like to go with me? I'd love to do this and that. Would you be interested in that? You make yourself available. You allow that the feeling you have in your heart, which is I want to connect, you honor that by letting that be known to others. You honor that when you say that to another person, you're not giving your whole soul away. You're not giving the whole connection away. You're giving them, what was I going to say? You're giving yourself, essentially, the honor that you deserve when you feel that you want friendship. And the people who pick up your cues are the people who are ready to connect with you for who you are. And they're ready to connect with you in a way that feels safe and where they're not needy for you, just as you don't need them. You're available for them. I'm reading the comment, but then when someone says no, I get lost. Right, of course, right? When we feel this need for connection, but it's never been honored, and every time people were not able to connect to us, we took that as if we were flawed, and as if the idea of connection was shameful and doesn't work, right? Like we told ourselves, well, clearly, I mean, what were you thinking? Like, you really wanted attention from your mother? You really wanted fun with this other kid you saw? You really wanted to feel good next to someone? Like, what were you even thinking? Back into your corner, right? So when we continue putting ourselves out there from that place, we're saying, here, please, let me know that I'm allowed to have connection. Let me know that I can get connection. Let me know that I'm lovable. And when you put all of your lovability into someone's very flimsy hands, they're probably not even paying that much attention to you because they're so consumed with themselves. They're dropping you. They're dropping you, and your heart gets shattered. So don't do that. You need to protect yourself. What you do instead is you hold all of yourself. And every time you do connect, what you're really doing is saying, You are a connected person, and your heart knows that, and your soul knows that. And therefore, it's sending you all these messages like, I need friendship, I want friendship, because it's real. And you're finally hearing the call. You're not ignoring it, and you're not thinking that you need to be someone for it. You're not thinking that you need to be with one specific person for it to happen. You're not dependent on one specific person. You are lovable and you are connected. So you're letting go of all that expectation. You're giving them a little note that says, hey, I'm open. And if they want, they come back. And if not, that's okay. You still have yourself, and you still have about 10 other people that might be interested. 10 other people is an understatement. There are hundreds of people who want to be connected with you just as you are, without you needing to prove anything to them. So the feeling of rejection is very real when we've put ourselves out and we're waiting for them to confirm for us who we are. Because when they don't, what they're confirming is what we believed originally, which is, I'm flawed, I don't deserve connection, I'm not good enough, there's something awful and shameful and disgusting about me, right? Like, we have all of these beliefs that we started believing very early in our life, before we even had words for it. It's possible that we don't even know what we're feeling. But as a baby, when you looked up at your mother and she looked away, there was a feeling there that had no words, and it said, all of who I am, which is so connected, is not and shouldn't be. And, you know, it's pre-verbal, but it's a feeling of awfulness and rejection and loneliness. Loneliness is so painful. Loneliness is one of the most painful feelings that we have. And you would think, like, wow, you have everything going for you. What's the big deal that you're lonely? It's everything. It's who we are. It's our souls. We're here to connect. Of course it's painful. So you don't want to be there where this is about, do you love me all the way and then I'm completely okay? Or do you reject me and then I'm completely nothing? No. You want to hold yourself so fully. You want to honor the feeling of desiring connection so strongly. You desire connection, and that is the most beautiful, spiritual, wonderful, lovable thing. And therefore, what are you going to do about it? It may require more work than what we're used to, right? If I'm used to, I'm talking here, I want to just say, I honor the experience of the rejection, the loneliness, the codependency. Like, I was there. Loneliness is a very painful feeling, and I felt it acutely. And, when I have felt that I'm giving all of who I am over to the other person to affirm, first of all, that hurt like hell because they weren't able to. But even when they were giving me something, it was never enough. There is no person that can do that for you. So even though it may feel easier, for example, in my case, I got married and I was like, well, now I have a man and he's right here. So he's going to be that guy for me, right? Even when he was able to tell me things that were positive and were affirming, I couldn't hear it because there was no way that I could get all of my fulfillment from one person. I had to get it from myself and from God and from the world and from the fact that God put me here. Like, looking around at yourself and your life and your wonderfulness, you are connecting to something way bigger than any human being can possibly give you. So even though it may feel more convenient to fall back on a spouse, an old friend, a friend that isn't working anymore, and it may be much more work to go out there and make connections and send DMs to people and comment on other people's lives and make small talk, which, I absolutely used to hate small talk. It was my worst thing ever. I was like, I just want the connection and I'll get it from my one or two people and I will not make small talk. It's work. It's work to cultivate friendships, right? But what you're doing is you're holding yourself. You're not giving yourself away. You're honoring yourself. You're honoring the fact that connection is a very real and very important thing. And you're opening so many doors. Or a better way to say it is you're planting so many seeds. You're putting a seed in the ground. covering it up with earth and walking on. You're not a farmer who stands over his plant all night watching it to grow. You're not saying to a friend, hi, would you like to go out for coffee? And then be like, when is she texting me back? When is she texting me back? Why isn't she responding? Why is she responding so coldly? I told her so much about myself. Why isn't she responding, right? That is incredibly painful. I mean, yeah, I remember moving to this new neighborhood and being like, putting myself out there and waiting for people to like me. They didn't. And it was painful every time until I went back to myself and I started nurturing myself. And instead of sitting in a circle of women where I felt ignored, I sat in the corner. Interesting things happened. People started coming over to my corner. The most wonderful people, the people who weren't sitting in that other circle. I started developing friendships that were amazing, right? So is it easier to just go where you think that the friendship is at? Yes, that's what we naturally do. But what we naturally do isn't the best thing to do. Our soul came in complete. Our natural thing when we got our first patch and you know, when we got our first rejection, literally or figuratively, like we didn't feel honored in the way that to the full extent that our soul could be honored. We thought, okay, so I'll do what I know to do. I'll cry more. I'll laugh more. I'll make myself likable. That's natural. And it's easy in some way. As much effort as it takes, it's actually easier for us in many ways because it's what we know. And we usually practice this from a very early age. We know how to make ourselves noticed. We know how to make ourselves connected. And there are connections which may not work so well, but they're there. And therefore, what was I going to say about that? They're so convenient. They're not only convenient because they're there, but you also know the exact pattern. I mean, in my marriage, I used to be like, if I didn't get the connection that I desperately wanted, I knew that starting the fight or, like ignoring my husband and like throwing him really bad vibes is going to make him ask me like, hey, what's up? I would get my connection. So that's very convenient. Why is it convenient? Even though it put me into like 3 days of hell and eventually he got, like the cycle continued. It didn't end up working out very well, but it was convenient because it was the best thing I knew. Because as a girl already, my mother had, thrown me attitude. I had thrown her attitude. It was something that I knew very well. Like if I threw attitude long enough as a girl, somebody was bound to notice, and if they didn't, I upped the ant. I think that's, I don't know how you pronounce that, up the ante or ant. But anyway, I knew how to get my attention. I had the path paved out perfectly. So it was so convenient. But the fact that it's convenient doesn't make that be the fulfillment of what your soul desires. The real connection that you're yearning for, and the reason we still want connection, even if we are in a relationship where we already know how to get attention, is because that's not what our soul wants. Our soul wants to know that it is loved and to know that it is connected. When I go out on the street and I have a sense of connection, I see strangers and they make me smile and I smile to them and we have a little moment. I don't know who they are, but we have a moment of connection. And that is magic for me, which may feel very unfulfilling to myself 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, I would have said, what? You exchanged a smile? That makes you happy? Like I wanted deep, fulfilling connections. But I've learned that because I'm so full, yes, those connections matter. Let me read the comment that came in. I don't think I could accept it. I don't think I couldn't accept it. Just felt like it was an expectation that was taken for granted. Not recognize that I put others before myself. Let me read that again. I don't think I couldn't accept it. Couldn't accept? Okay, it just felt like it was an expectation that was taken for granted, not recognize that it was put. Oh, so I think you're saying that we were programmed to put others before ourselves, right? These things are pre-verbal, meaning to say that when a child needs to cry, but crying, they notice right away, right, that it doesn't bring them the connection they want. Their parents are actually getting annoyed. They will put their parents first. Why? Because they want their parents to notice them. So they'll do whatever it takes. This is from before you could put thoughts and feelings into words. You were less than a year old. So of course, when you're 20 years old and just putting everyone's needs before you, and you're like, and sometimes it just has to stop because it's gotten so painful that it doesn't work anymore. And then you're like, well, what's going on? And you don't even know what you did, what you're doing all these years. You've been doing it so well for so many years. You have no idea what's happening here. But we can go back and heal ourselves. And the way to do that is to know and honor just how lovable we really are. Even though there were people in your life who were not available and couldn't do it for you, it doesn't mean that it can't be done. So yeah, these patterns are very old. And these friendships, even when we meet new people, the easiest thing we can do is go back to what we know. We know it works, right? We can get very needy. I mean, for me personally, like, I knew that I had overshared a lot in my relationships. So even though I was meeting new people and people who were closer to where I was going to, I tended to overshare. It was something that I knew I could fall back on. That if I overshared, people had no choice but to like be my friend. You don't have to fall back on your old patterns, and getting out of them is the hardest thing you'll ever do, because you're unlearning a lifetime of connection, and connection is your most basic sense of self. You come in connected and you figured out a way of connecting, but it doesn't work anymore. You don't want to be sacrificing yourself and who you are for any relationship other than with yourself. The first time I heard that chesed is self-serving, I thought the person was off the wall. Yes, right? I mean, first of all, from an emotional perspective, we were taught that this is the way. There was no other way, right? And we didn't think it was self-serving, it was survival. When you're in survival, you don't think about selfishness or not. Like, you have to be selfish. You're either dying or you're surviving. So whatever it takes to not die, you will do, and you're not thinking it's selfish. But also, even from a community perspective, right? Our parents, our people around, we were all being told, fit in, do whatever it takes so that you go along and you don't bother anyone, so that you fit, that you belong. And here's the thing, this is an important point. We were all trying to belong, to fit in so that we can find connection. But actually, fitting in is the opposite of connection. It takes connection away. If you're trying to fit in and not stand out, and you're basically saying, I can't be who I am. I need to be who they expect me to be. But your soul is like, wait a minute, I came in to be a unique experience. I came in to be who I am. Like, why am I being ignored? And you're basically, again, telling yourself who I am doesn't deserve to be loved. But if I can be something else, if I can do chesed, if I can keep the system going, the family system going, if I can keep all my siblings in check, if I can keep the community in check, if I can just fit in and be the right thing to be, which is not who I am, then I will survive. But the truth is, who you are is the right thing to be. Exactly who you are is good. It's great, right? God made you this way. I don't know what God was thinking. I think God was thinking that you were wonderful and the world needs you just as you are. And so coming back home to that, honoring that person that you are is a person who is multifaceted. You have so much going for you. Plus, you also are a connected being. You meet people on the street. They are attracted to you. They want to spend time with you. When you go into that feeling of you are magnetic, you are wonderful, you are a blessing, you will notice that people start responding to you differently. You don't have to do what you did as a child. You don't have to run after people. The more we do run after people, and the more we do run into codependency, real relationship can't happen. Which we can expand on, but maybe not. We have 10 minutes left, I think. Let me read the next comment. I say to myself that I'm lovable, but I don't understand why others don't see it and why they don't want to connect with me. Right. again, very painful when we're waiting for other people to see us, to connect with us, to affirm for us that we are lovable. But here's something interesting. If you are seeing that reflected in people, it's time to go back home. There's so much, look, just based on the conversation we've had now, there is so much healing. There are, let's say, 30 or 40 or 50 years of conditioning to deprogram. We have been programmed that who you are is not good enough and that people will not connect to you. That's been going with you for years. So coming into this desire to connect, and you're saying, I am a lovable person and I want to have fun, so let me connect with people. And then people say to you, well, no. It's devastating because it's affirming everything that you already know for 50 years. But it's not the truth. The truth is that you can come back again and say, do I feel loved now or not loved now? Well, the fact is that person gave me a rejection and I don't feel loved right now. Okay, let's start building it up again. Let's start from scratch. Why am I loved? Why is that 1 or 2 or 5 people's opinion of me not that important? I mean, I grew up in a very close-knit community. Everybody knew me, and I felt that if their approval was there, I was good. They were 1,000 people, but they were 1,000 people who very much belonged in the same system and thought the same things, and were all trying to belong to the same thing. So if I failed them, I felt like a total failure. They were 1,000 people. But they were only 1,000 people. There are way more people in the world. Way more. So you don't have to be affirmed by anyone, especially not by the 1 or 2 people that you're waiting to be affirmed by. And yet you will be affirmed by everyone once you know it yourself. Every time you get a rejection, that is an opportunity again to check in with yourself. How is this resonating with me? Rejection for me just confirmed everything for me, right? I am crazy. I don't belong. I'm awful. And, something's deathly wrong with me. No, I deserve to live. I deserve to honor myself. I am who I am. And it's good. It's not only good enough, it's wonderful. Get back there. Get back home after every rejection. This is another opportunity to heal. It doesn't mean you're in square one. It means that you're coming back to yourself. It means you have another opportunity to heal another layer. You've been at this for 30 years. You've been believing these things for 30 years. It would make sense that for the first few times that you're doing this healing, that yes, you have to go back home and refortify yourself. You have to come back to your heart and be like, oh, I remember now. I remember who I am. Because you can forget. We go out in the world and we forget who we are. So you're coming back home, you're remembering, and you're trying again. And you're giving them a small opportunity to connect with you. Not a big opportunity. You don't have to trust anyone with your life more than they have gained your trust. You give them a small opportunity. And here's the thing, the more filled up with ourselves we are, the easier it is to connect. And the bigger small connections are, meaning we have a small moment with someone and it fills us up because it's just affirming what we already know. Versus when we are empty and a person gives us that small connection or even big connection, or someone's going totally out of their way for us, we're barely even noticing it because it doesn't fill the well, right? We so deeply are hungry to know our soul and to know our value that whatever they're giving us just doesn't talk to us. So keep going home. As your relationships will grow, which they will, you still need to come home. You still need to remind yourself of who you are. Every time you grow more, who could be at my door? Every time you grow more, you will need to do this again. You will need to do this work again. So the work is, right? And the work is coming back and loving yourself more. And the fact that you're here now lets you know that you're open for it, that you're ready for it, that you've opened yourself up to it. It means that you've grown a little, that you're ready for more. You're ready to undo some and to redo it in a way where you're coming at the world with all of yourself. Now we have 20 seconds remaining. Sometimes we think we love ourselves, but give off a vibe that says stay away. Well, that's another opportunity to come back and love ourselves, even if we have bad vibes, you know? All right. Love you all. Thank you for being here.